Your personal philosophy is the foundation upon which every part of your life is built. It's not just about what you believe. It's about how you think, how you make decisions, and how you interpret the world around you. In essence, it determines how you respond to life. And as Jim Rohn often said, your personal philosophy is the major determining factor in how your life works out. People sometimes think their circumstances are the reason they're not succeeding. They blame the economy, their job, their upbringing, or even the weather. But the truth is, while those things might play a role, they're not the real reason someone fails or succeeds. It's the interpretation of those circumstances and the actions that follow that make all the difference. And interpretation always begins with philosophy. Two people can go through the same hardship, yet come out with completely different results. One person crumbles under pressure, while the other becomes stronger. Why? Because one had a philosophy that said, life is against me, while the other believed, every challenge is an opportunity. The situation was the same, but the mindset, the personal philosophy, was different. That's what changed the outcome. Your philosophy influences how you spend your time, how you manage your money, how you treat others, and how you invest in yourself. If your philosophy is passive, negative, or reactive, you'll likely experience life from a place of survival. You'll wait for things to happen. And when they don't go your way, you'll feel stuck and frustrated. But if your philosophy is strong, proactive, and growth-oriented, you'll take control of your life. You won't wait for opportunity. You'll create it. You won't hope for change. You'll become the change. Let's take money as an example. Some people have a philosophy that says, money is the root of all evil. So they avoid it, fear it, or spend it carelessly. Others believe money is a tool to create freedom, and they handle it with discipline and intention. The difference in financial outcomes is not luck, it's philosophy. The same is true for health, relationships, and career. What you believe determines what you do, and what you do consistently shapes your reality. Your philosophy is also responsible for how you set goals. If you don't believe in your ability to grow, to learn, or to succeed, then you'll never set goals that stretch you. But when your philosophy tells you that you're capable, and that consistent effort leads to progress, then you'll dream bigger and take meaningful action to achieve more. The good news is your personal philosophy is not fixed. You weren't born with it. You built it over time, consciously or unconsciously, from your environment, your upbringing, your influences. And just like it was built, it can be rebuilt. You can decide what you want to believe. You can study new ideas, surround yourself with better influences, and choose thoughts that move your life forward. Jim Rohn's teachings emphasize that real change doesn't begin in your circumstances. It begins in your thinking. Upgrade your thinking, and your circumstances begin to shift as a result. You can't fix your life by only changing what's on the outside. You've got to start by working on the inside. That's where your philosophy lies. That's where all lasting change begins. So, your personal philosophy isn't just one of many factors. It is the starting point for everything. When you change that, you start to change everything else with it. A poor philosophy leads to poor results. That's not an opinion. It's a principle that plays out in every area of life. Your philosophy, the way you see the world and process life, becomes the internal script that guides your actions. If the script is weak, filled with faulty assumptions, limiting beliefs, or misguided values, the results that follow will reflect that. You can't build a strong, successful life on a shaky foundation of thought. It just doesn't work that way. People often wonder why their life doesn't seem to improve. They might try new habits, set new goals, or change their environment, but they still find themselves stuck in the same cycle. Why? Because they haven't changed the root cause, their philosophy. You can try all the external strategies in the world, but if your thinking is outdated, limited, or broken, you'll keep producing the same results. As Jim Rohn used to say, you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. And that direction begins with philosophy. Let's take an example. Suppose someone believes that success is only for a lucky few. That belief becomes their operating system. So even when opportunities show up, they don't see them. Even when people offer help, they assume there's a catch. They don't act because deep down their philosophy says, it's not possible for me. That person could have talent, skill, even great potential, but none of it matters because the filter through which they see life is clouded. That filter is their philosophy. Now, compare that to someone whose philosophy says, success is the result of consistent effort, learning, and growth. This person is not smarter or more talented, but they show up differently. They're willing to try to fail and to try again. They see every setback as part of the process. They learn from mistakes, adjust, and move forward. Over time, that mindset produces better results. The difference between the two, not intelligence, not luck, just a better philosophy. The truth is philosophy drives behavior. Behavior creates habits. Habits shape results. So, if you want better results, you've got to start at the top of that chain, with your thinking. And here's the encouraging part: philosophy can be upgraded. You can read, study, ask questions, listen to new voices, and expose yourself to better ideas. You can trade in old, outdated beliefs for ones that serve you. You can choose to think differently. And thinking differently leads to living differently. Jim Rohn often pointed out that success is something you attract by the person you become. And who you become is a direct reflection of your philosophy. If your current results aren't what you want, don't just look at what you're doing. Examine what you're believing. What assumptions are you living by? What principles are you following without question? Are they leading you toward growth or keeping you stuck in survival? Poor results don't mean you're a failure. They're feedback. They're clues. They tell you something about the system you're using. And that system is built on your philosophy. If you're not happy with the outcomes, it's time to stop blaming the world and start upgrading the way you see the world. Once you change the way you think, once you replace a poor philosophy with a strong, intentional, empowering one, you set yourself on a new course. Suddenly, actions become more aligned, decisions become wiser, and opportunities become more visible. It's not magic. It's the natural result of choosing better thoughts. And when your philosophy improves, so does everything else. Beliefs are powerful. They shape the lens through which you view the world, and in turn, they shape your actions, your decisions, and ultimately your outcomes. The challenge is that most people rarely stop to examine their beliefs. They simply accept them as truth, passed down from parents, shaped by culture, influenced by friends, or absorbed through repeated experience. But just because a belief is familiar doesn't mean it's true. And just because it's been with you for a long time doesn't mean it belongs in your future. If you want real change in your life, you must develop the courage and discipline to examine your beliefs, challenge them, and improve them. Think of your beliefs as the programming behind your actions. If that programming is outdated or built on misinformation, it will continue to generate results that limit your growth. For example, if you believe that you're not good with money, you'll find ways, often unconsciously, to prove that belief right. You'll avoid learning about finance. You'll hesitate to save or invest. And you might overspend without understanding why. The belief becomes self-fulfilling. That's the dangerous power of an unexamined philosophy. Jim Rohn taught that you must stand guard at the door of your mind. Why? Because the wrong belief, even a small one, can send your life off course for years. But here's the good news: beliefs are not fixed. They can be upgraded, replaced, restructured. And it starts by asking better questions. Where did this belief come from? Is it based on experience or fear? Is it helping me or holding me back? When you start thinking this way, you take back control of your mind. You stop being a victim of old programming and start becoming the author of your future. Challenging your beliefs doesn't mean you have to reject everything you've ever known. It means you test what's true and what's useful. You keep what serves your highest potential and discard what doesn't. And that's a sign of wisdom, not rebellion. Smart people evolve their beliefs over time. They're not loyal to ideas that don't work. They're loyal to growth, truth, and progress. Improving your beliefs also means exposing yourself to better information. Read books that stretch your thinking. Listen to mentors who challenge you. Surround yourself with people who believe in possibility, not just limitation. Your environment matters. If you constantly absorb negativity, scarcity, and fear, your beliefs will reflect that. But if you choose an environment filled with positivity, ambition, and discipline, your beliefs will begin to elevate. Beliefs influence everything: how you approach your goals, how you handle setbacks, how you see yourself and others. If you believe you're capable, resilient, and worthy, you'll act with boldness and courage. If you believe the opposite, you'll hesitate, avoid risk, and settle for less. It all starts in the mind. That's why upgrading your philosophy isn't a motivational suggestion. It's a necessity if you want to live a life of purpose and impact. When you challenge your beliefs, you make room for new growth. You allow new ideas to take root. And slowly, with intention, your entire way of thinking begins to shift. You become more open, more curious, more empowered. You stop seeing life as something happening to you and start seeing it as something you can shape with thought, discipline, and belief. No external change can substitute for internal clarity. And internal clarity begins with inspecting what you believe and why. When you do the deep work of refining your philosophy, the rest of your life begins to align. That's how powerful belief really is. It's not just part of the puzzle. It is the puzzle. And when you solve that, everything else starts to fit. Small shifts in thinking often lead to the most profound changes in results. The reason is simple: your thoughts shape your decisions, and your decisions shape your direction. When you adjust your thinking just a little, you begin to walk a new path. And even a slight change in direction over time leads to a completely different destination. This is one of the most overlooked truths in personal development. Most people wait for massive breakthroughs, some dramatic shift in circumstance, not realizing that the real power lies in the small, subtle, consistent shifts in how they think each day. Imagine a pilot setting a course just 1 degree off. Over a few miles, that's barely noticeable. But over hundreds of miles, they'll end up in a completely different place. That's how your thoughts work. A small change today, repeated consistently, could mean a dramatically different outcome 5 years from now. That's why Jim Rohn emphasized the importance of improving just a little bit every day. Because compounded over time, those small changes become life-changing results. You don't need to overhaul your life in one day. You don't need to burn everything down and start over. What you need is to make better decisions more consistently. And better decisions come from better thinking. When you start to think differently about your habits, your time, your money, your relationships, your purpose, everything starts to change in response. Maybe it's the shift from I have to I get to. That one shift turns obligation into opportunity. Or maybe it's the move from I can't afford it to how can I afford it? One limits your vision, the other expands it. Or instead of saying, I've always been this way, you begin to say, I'm learning how to change. These aren't huge leaps. They're small adjustments in thought. But those adjustments change your emotional state, your behavior, and your momentum. Your philosophy doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to improve. And the improvement comes through practice, reflection, and exposure to better ideas. That's why reading, journaling, and surrounding yourself with wise people matters so much. They challenge your assumptions. They introduce new ways of thinking. They help you see where you're limiting yourself and where you can grow. And growth begins with awareness. Sometimes we don't even realize that our thinking is holding us back. We're so used to certain mental patterns that they feel normal. But normal doesn't always mean right. Normal doesn't always mean effective. You have to step back and ask, is this thought serving me? Is it helping me get where I want to go? If not, even a slight shift toward a more empowering perspective can open new doors. Another key is consistency. A new thought won't change your life overnight. It needs repetition. You need to feed your mind with it until it becomes your new default. That's how the brain works. Neural pathways strengthen with repetition. So don't just have a better thought once. Have it daily. Let it become part of your internal programming. Eventually, those better thoughts lead to better choices. You wake up earlier. You read instead of scroll. You invest instead of spend. You speak with intention instead of react. These aren't major events. They're small, daily shifts in behavior, triggered by a higher quality of thought. So don't underestimate the power of a single idea. Don't overlook the value of a small change. One better thought, repeated and acted on, can change your direction forever. That's the quiet power of philosophy. It doesn't shout, but it shapes everything. And if you commit to shifting your thinking just a little at a time, the results will multiply beyond what you can currently imagine. Most people live by default, not by design. They go through the motions, repeating yesterday over and over again, hoping things will somehow get better. But hope by itself is not a strategy. Living by default means accepting whatever life hands you. It means waking up and responding to circumstances instead of creating them. It means letting the environment, the news, the economy, and other people dictate the direction of your life. And that's a dangerous way to live because it leaves your future up to chance. Living by design, on the other hand, is intentional. It means you take control of your thoughts, your choices, and your actions. You decide what kind of life you want, and then start building it, brick by brick. Jim Rohn used to say, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. That truth should shake you a little. Because unless you choose to take the driver's seat, someone else will. Whether it's your employer, society, or your old habits. When you live by default, you end up in survival mode. You spend your days reacting to problems instead of solving them. You let bad habits run your schedule. You say yes to things you don't want to do. You wait for motivation instead of building discipline. And over time, this passive approach chips away at your confidence, your energy, and your potential. You may not even notice it at first, because default mode often feels comfortable. But comfort is deceptive. It can trap you in mediocrity, Living by design requires clarity. You have to know what you want, why you want it, and who you're willing to become to get it. That kind of clarity doesn't just show up. It's cultivated. You create it by reflecting, by asking hard questions, and by stepping back from the noise of life to get honest with yourself. What does a great life look like for you? Not what someone else told you it should be, but what genuinely excites, fulfills, and challenges you. Once you have clarity, you need a plan. A plan is the bridge between your vision and your reality. It turns dreams into action steps. It turns hope into habit. And that's when design starts to happen. When you wake up each day with purpose, knowing what matters and what doesn't, and choosing actions that align with your vision. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. When you live by design, you give your best energy to your priorities. You learn from your mistakes instead of being defined by them. You evaluate, adjust, and grow. You stop running in circles and start moving forward. And yes, it takes effort. It's easier to live by default. It's easier to scroll, to delay, to blame. But ease is expensive. The price you pay for comfort now is often regret later. Living by design requires discipline, but it also delivers reward. It gives you a sense of control, of progress, of purpose. And that's what builds a fulfilling life. Not luck, not talent, not chance. Design. You don't need to know all the answers today. You just need to stop drifting and start deciding. Decide who you want to become. Decide what matters most. And decide to build a philosophy that leads you toward it, one day at a time. Most people won't do that. But you're not most people. When you choose to live by design, everything changes. Not all at once, but certainly over time. And that choice is where your power begins. A strong personal philosophy doesn't chase success. It attracts it. That's one of the most powerful principles Jim Rohn taught throughout his career. Most people spend their lives running after things: money, recognition, comfort, opportunities. But the real question isn't how to chase success faster. It's how to become the kind of person that success is naturally drawn to. And that process begins with the kind of philosophy you live by. Your philosophy governs how you show up in the world. It influences the way you speak, the way you think, the energy you bring into a room, the consistency of your habits, and the direction of your goals. When your philosophy is solid, built on values like discipline, responsibility, integrity, growth, and contribution, you begin to carry a different presence. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop drifting and begin to move with intention. And people, opportunities, and results are drawn to that kind of clarity. Now think of it this way: success is like a magnet, but only if you're the kind of metal it sticks to. If your mindset is filled with excuses, blame, or laziness, success will slide right past you. But if your philosophy is rooted in ownership, work ethic, curiosity, and self-improvement, success will find its way into your life again and again. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to chase it down. You'll attract it through who you are becoming. That's why the work must begin on the inside. Instead of obsessing over the outcomes, start focusing on your character, your habits, your beliefs, and your principles. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. If you want more abundance, become more valuable. If you want better relationships, become a better communicator. If you want more opportunities, become more prepared. It all circles back to who you are and the philosophy that drives your decisions. This kind of thinking is what separates the average from the exceptional. Most people look for shortcuts. They chase trends, get rich, quick schemes, quick fixes, or copy what others are doing without understanding the foundation behind the actions. But a person with a strong philosophy doesn't need to chase the latest thing. They build themselves up so consistently that good things become a natural consequence of how they live. And it's not about being flashy or loud. In fact, some of the most grounded, successful people are quiet builders. They do the work day in and day out. They focus on what they can control. They don't rely on luck or external motivation. Their inner philosophy keeps them steady in both victory and adversity. And because they live by principle, they earn trust, respect, and influence over time. It's important to remember that success is not an event. It's a process. It's not a single breakthrough. It's a series of good decisions made over time. And those decisions come from a place of belief and clarity. That's why refining your philosophy is not optional if you want lasting results. It is the source of everything else. Upgrade your thinking, and you naturally upgrade your life. So instead of asking, how can I get success? Start asking, how can I grow into the kind of person success is drawn to? That question will take you further than any hack, any shortcut, or any trick. Because when your philosophy is strong, the results take care of themselves. You no longer need to chase. You simply become. And that shift changes everything. Your personal philosophy is the silent architect of your destiny. It shapes how you think, what you do, and ultimately, what you become. While most people spend their lives reacting to circumstances, you now know the real power lies in choosing your thoughts, refining your beliefs, and living with intention. Small shifts in thinking, made consistently, lead to extraordinary results over time. Success isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by becoming the kind of person who naturally draws it in. And that begins by designing a philosophy rooted in growth, discipline, and purpose. When you take control of your philosophy, you take control of your future.